All right, Herc, so there we have it. A second year in a row that Inter Miami are on the brink of a playoff elimination in the first round against a lower seed. Where do you want to start here? Feels like a big missed opportunity for Messi and co.
A massive opportunity missed for Messi and co. And you just said it, Seb. This isn't a surprise. This isn't coming out of nowhere. They saw what happened to them last year when they played in abysmal, and I say with all due respect to Atlanta United, an abysmal Atlanta United, and they lost in 3 games. They couldn't get out of a best-of-3 series.
알랭스입니다. 손흥민 선수는 MLS에서도 우승컵을 들어올리기 위해 나아가고 있습니다. 그 반대편에는 리오넬 메시가 있죠. 하지만 메시의 인터 마이애미는 아직 순탄하지만은 않습니다. 현재 내슈빌과의 3전 2선승제 시리즈에서 1대1로 결정적인 3차전을 앞두고 있고요. 손흥민은 이미 준결승 무대에 올라 있습니다. 이번 영상은 인터 마이애미의 현 상황과 메시가 말하는 자신의 팀과 MLS에 대한 생각, 그리고 손흥민의 LAFC를 포함해 MLS 우승 경쟁 구도를 살펴보겠습니다. 또한 오랜 화제거리인데요. 메시와 호날두 비교에 대해서도 이야기합니다.
MLS Cup playoffs and none other than Lionel Messi and Inter Miami visiting Nashville over the weekend for Game 2 of their best-of-3 first-round series. Remember, Messi and Inter Miami winning Game 1.
First glance, I'm thinking, well, he made a meal out of this one. Then you see the angle right here, that leg. That's a penalty kick.
Rios Novo there off his line, the guilty party. Surridge steps up, 1-0 Nashville. Just before the half, Nashville looking for a second. They get it off the corner. Josh Bauer scuttling it over the line.
Right here. Could have given it to Messi, he does not.
All right, well, Messi's going to do something, right? Right? 89th minute, 2-1.
Well, that's why you give it to Messi. When in doubt, al 10.
Messi scores, but in the end, not enough. 2-1 the final. Here's Javier Mascherano.
A lo de Leo, creo que bueno, en el primer tiempo quizá no lo encontramos a él en situaciones cerca del área, pero encontramos otras situaciones, como la de Tadeo, que bueno, que también es muy dudosa, y que hay un agarrón. Como la jugada de Luis, que va al palo, es decir, hemos tenido situaciones, no hemos estado finos en el último tercio, y también hay un mérito del rival, ¿no? que bueno, que tapó los caminos de alguna u otra manera, creo que, pero bueno, más allá de eso, creo que los jugadores han hecho un esfuerzo grande. No nos ha alcanzado y bueno, ahora a preparar para poder hacer un gran partido el sábado y pasar la eliminatoria.
All right, Herc, so there we have it. A second year in a row that Inter Miami are on the brink of a playoff elimination in the first round against a lower seed. Where do you want to start here? Feels like a big missed opportunity for Messi and co.
A massive opportunity missed for Messi and co. And you just said it, Seb. This isn't a surprise. This isn't coming out of nowhere. They saw what happened to them last year when they played in abysmal, and I say with all due respect to Atlanta United, an abysmal Atlanta United, and they lost in 3 games. They couldn't get out of a best-of-3 series. Being a historic team last year, the bookies' favorite, odds-on favorite to win, and again, here they are, MLS Cup favorites, and on the brink of another elimination. Now, I say brink because they gotta lose.
Yep.
They have to lose. We're gonna give Inter Miami the benefit of the doubt heading into their 3rd game. But is this really what you want if you're Inter Miami? A 3rd game with Messi, who's 38 years old, with Messi, who physically, you're asking him to go another 90 minutes to seal up this victory. You need to save as much as Messi as you can get. And in a game where you have to be smart, you can't play the same way you play at home as you play away, even if you have Messi, because teams are starting to figure you out. Hani Mukhtar comes to the center back's feet, picks the ball up, deep ball through to Surridge, who makes a run. This is a guy who's over 6 foot. He's a big, lanky guy making that run, beating you in behind, draws a penalty kick, and now you're behind the 8 ball because your team is not built to chase, because your team is going to get stretched, and because teams are starting to figure you out. So it was brink of elimination last year, eliminated. Brink of elimination this year, they could be eliminated. We go back to the CONCACAF Champions Cup, disastrous eliminations. We go back to, what else do you want? Club World Cup, the way, granted it's PSG, but you got to be smarter about how you go about certain games, and they've not been that. There have been some players on Inter Miami's roster, 11, who have not pulled their weight. It can't always be Messi.
Yeah.
Messi's been the best player, not only Inter Miami, but of the league. But you can't ask him to be the best player every single night at 38 years of age. If you're going to pay Rodrigo de Paul, all you're paying him. If he's going to go off and take off midweek to go visit his girlfriend in Argentina,
there it is.
You got to come up and you got to show out. You have to show out because he's been bad. He's been bad in that center of the midfield.
Yeah, so as far as Messi goes, I thought Messi was good, was what you'd expect from Messi. Obviously, the goal at the end, there was a chance in the first half that he missed, but there were some passes. We showed you the one in the highlight that almost ends up in a goal. Would have been like a hockey assist. But that pass that he hits to Alba, I mean, that's just vintage, beautiful Messi. And that's the type of play he makes once or twice a half, maybe 3 or 4 times a game. And that should be enough for most teams. The problem with this Inter Miami team, and I think you pointed out the first goal, that's the evidence right there. Yeah. They are incredibly vulnerable defensively. Hani Mukhtar is not somebody you don't scout. That's a league MVP. He picks up the ball and nobody steps to him. And the ball that he hits, Herc, and I know you'll appreciate this as a forward, is not a great ball. It's just that high line is so out of whack. There's so much space behind, and then we get to the goalie.
They are so slow.
Totally. But Rios Novo, to me, is another problem. If you're going to play the way Inter Miami play, you need a Ter Stegen type,
a sweeper keeper,
a stand-on-your-head guy who can bail you out of games. Inter Miami does not have that on their roster. And I look at this team, and I really start to worry because this game went the opposite of most Inter Miami scripts, where Inter Miami are the team that's usually kind of rope-a-doping the other team. The other team is not finishing, is maybe a little starstruck. They're not being as good as they should be. Inter Miami was wasteful here. And if Inter Miami is going to be wasteful in these playoffs, they are not going to advance simply because, Herc, they are not good enough defensively. They are so vulnerable. I know we've said it time and time before, but you look at that first goal, you cannot allow that to happen 5 minutes into a game like this.
That's the way you beat Inter Miami, and it's been like that for the longest time. And no matter the legs that they try to give Messi, the players they try to build around Messi, it's not enough. You've got a Luis Suarez who's very good in front of goal, who's very smart, how he interplays with Messi, how he links up in that final third. But when you have a Luis Suarez and when you have a Messi, you're asking why somebody like Hani Mukhtar can come off the center back's foot, pick it up, and nobody's pressing him because you don't have the type of player up top to press you. World football is a little different now. World football is everybody has to work. It's more vertical. It's more physical. This team is not vertical. This team is not physical. That said, they had plenty of chances in this game.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Allangs cleaner, more clinical, more intelligent in when he gets the ball, picking his head up. There was a play where he tries to have a go at it by himself. Messi afterwards looks at him and goes, hey, man, I'm right here.
Yeah.
It's a square ball you play to the greatest player that's ever played. And now the game's even. And now it's a different panorama. And now you give yourself an opportunity against a team that you've dominated historically. You have dominated Nashville historically. Well, B.J. Callahan's Nashville, they understand that they have to be more physical. And that physicality doesn't just mean coming in and cleaning with tackles. That means also running your opponent into the ground because they understand that this opponent can't keep up with them that way.
So we're looking at a Game 3 this Saturday in Fort Lauderdale, Inter Miami, Nashville to move on. What do you think the fallout will be if Inter Miami is eliminated? Like, as we think about that potential blame game, because, again, we're not there yet, where do you think the responsibility lies as we look at this Inter Miami team that right now, at least based on the game we just saw about Nashville, feels a little bit like it's disintegrating in midair at the most important time of the season?
It's very easy to point the finger at the coach and Mascherano. You hire...
It's easy because it's obvious, sir.
Yeah, it is obvious, but what's he going to do? Not play Sergio Busquets? Not play Luis Suarez? Any coach in this position, for as experienced as you are, you're going to play the players that are around Messi, that were brought in to be around Messi.
Okay.
That's a reality.
What about
he doesn't have the luxury of having the goalkeeper you just asked about, or center backs who can play a high line with the ability of a little bit of athleticism where if they get caught, 1v1 situation, they can be bailed out of it with makeup speed. He doesn't have that luxury. I'm not blaming the format here, but this is blowing up in Major League Soccer's face. They would rather the gate of a best-of-3 and, I guess, 3 games that are televised then reward the best team. This series would have been over if it was one game.
Last year's too.
Last year's too. It would have been over. And the biggest marquee player you have would have been on to the next round and less games under his belt. That's the way you reward a team. This best of three, it gives opportunities to the weaker teams. It really does. It really does. And we're seeing this. We see the majority of teams who go out into, who will advance into, I should say. It's not a lot. It's not many. More games go to three. And in a league where I think home field advantage really matters, and world football home field advantage really matters, you have to reward these teams, not punish them.
I look at Mascherano, and for me, it's obvious. I get what you're saying. Like, there's some limitations that are beyond his pay grade as far as this roster is concerned.
Correct.
He didn't really do anything in terms of in-game changes in this matchup. And, you know, they go down early. There's a goal again just before the half. And I'm looking at that and I'm saying, all right, well, you got to go to your bench. Now, he did make a change at the half, and I think he made one like 10 minutes into the second half. He makes no other changes. Maybe they don't have the deepest bench, but that game was screaming for something. So I look at Mascherano and I say, all right, you're not really managing in-game. What was the big knock against Inter Miami last year? Their defense was terrible.
Yeah.
Their defense got worse this year. I mean, somehow their defense got worse. So I wonder, in a situation where you're going to need your coach to push a button, unless Messi's just going to bail you out, and that's a possibility. That's a real possibility with this team for every game they're in. I just don't see him as the guy that's going to push the right buttons. And yeah, if this team goes out, we'll talk about Rodrigo de Paul and we'll talk about all those things. But at the end of the day, you've got to have somebody in that technical area that can get you over the hump.
Yeah.
And I have big doubts about Mascherano when it comes to knockout
We
football.
had big doubts about Tata Martino, and he's a very dominant coach in this league. We have doubts about Mascherano because of how he got the job. He has no experience. He was a failed U20 coach who didn't qualify for the World Cup and then went to the World Cup due to political reasons, and they still crashed out at a home World Cup. Same thing with the U23s at the Olympics. Mascherano has not had any evidence of a body of work that he could be the manager that certainly Inter Miami brass hoped he could be. So this isn't a surprise to me. We're watching him in that little press conference he did, and he's talking about got to be a fish, be a fish. Is Ted Lasso?
It is remarkable to hear him kind of scrambling like that. Inter Miami Nashville, they will play on Saturday, Game 3 in Fort Lauderdale as Javier Mascherano, Lionel Messi and company look to move on.
Que nunca imaginé que iba a vivir todo lo que viví, que iba a tener la carrera que tuve. Nunca lo pensé ni lo imaginé. Siempre mi único objetivo y mi sueño era ser profesional, era jugar al fútbol. Que cuando pasan las cosas es porque tiene que ser así, porque tiene que pasar de esa manera.
Hi, I'm Zane Lowe. I've spent a large part of my life sitting with some of the greatest artists of all time, talking about their music and their art. But I don't often get to have these kind of conversations in the world of professional sports. But I am a fan. I am a supporter and a spectator, like all of you watching. I love the art of sports. And there is no greater artist in the world of football than Leo Messi. Fast forward to a rare and golden opportunity to sit opposite the GOAT to talk about his journey, his life today, and his future.
You're the only person I've ever interviewed who's early.
Lionel Messi, it's great to meet you.
You know, there's a lot of great songs now that reference you in terms of being an icon or the GOAT as somebody that you should aspire to achieve like Messi or be more like Messi. How do you feel when you hear your name referenced in songs and people referring to you in those moments?
Bueno, me siento muy halagado, obviamente, por aparecer en una letra o incluso mis hijos hoy lo disfruta, se sorprende de escuchar mi nombre en algún tema. La verdad que es lindo, ¿no? Poder ser partícipe de la música de ese lado, que me tengan en cuenta en muchas de las letras, porque hay muchos artistas de los cuales me han nombrado en sus canciones, y la verdad que para mí es algo muy emocionante, y estoy agradecido a todo lo que lo hicieron, porque sé que en toda la letra me nombran con mucho cariño y siempre halagándome desde algún lado, y la verdad que nada, que agradecido y lo disfruto junto a a mis hijos, a mi familia.
As the number 10, as the link player, you get to participate in a lot of different movement on the field. How do you see the game when you're on the field? People say that you're able to see ahead of the game itself. Do you identify with that statement?
Bueno, la verdad que fue cambiando mucho mi estilo de juego durante toda mi carrera, ¿no? Empecé en mi inicio jugando por afuera, después jugué más adentro, he pasado por momentos donde jugaba con mucha libertad y me movía por donde entre comillas, donde quería. No sé, siempre estoy intentando de generar los espacios tanto para mí como para mi compañero, para intentar de ser efectivo, de resolver, ya sea con un pase, con un gol. No sé, crecí de esa manera. Mi único objetivo siempre fue intentar llegar al otro arco, hacer el gol y nada, intentar de moverme y de estar bien posicionado a la hora de atacar para aprovechar los momentos. No puedo prever nada, no, pero sí ver un poco el juego, por dónde está pasando y por dónde podemos hacer daño o por dónde no pueden llegar a hacer daño. Es lo que intento ver lo más rápido que pueda.
Do you visualize the game though? Not necessarily to try to impact or influence the game in advance, but do you imagine the game before you run onto the field?
No, pero sí que imagino lo que me gustaría que pase o imagino algunas jugadas, alguna parte del partido que puedan llegar a darse y después, como te decía antes, ¿no? En un partido pasan muchísimas cosas, a veces se da, a veces no, pero intento de visualizar el partido en mi cabeza y de generar mi jugada o pensar lo que pueda llegar a pasarla para después hacerlo dentro de la cancha. La realidad que muchas veces no ocurre lo que uno imagina, lo que uno piensa, pero a mí me hace bien y está bueno para prepararme antes de los partidos.
Too many goals, too many trophies, too many achievements for us to be able to focus on in the time that we have here in terms of your time in Europe. But before we talk about MLS, I'd just love to know in your own words, 2 years on, what that time was like for you.
Bueno, creo que fue una etapa espectacular, que nunca imaginé que iba a vivir todo lo que viví, que iba a tener la carrera que tuve. Nunca lo pensé ni lo imaginé, siempre mi único objetivo y mi sueño era ser profesional, era jugar al fútbol. Desde muy chiquito que me gustó la pelota, que me gustó jugar. Me encanta el juego, el competir, el ganar. Y bueno, la verdad que soy un agradecido a Dios por todo lo que me regaló, lo que conseguí. Tuve la gran suerte de conseguir todo en el fútbol, tanto a nivel grupal, de equipo, de selección, de individual. Ni yo le hubiese pedido tanto de todo esto. La verdad que me dio, la vida me regaló todo y nada, simplemente soy un agradecido de la carrera que tuve y de la vida que me tocó.
What excited you the most about coming to Miami and joining into Miami?
Bueno, la verdad que siempre tuve en mi cabeza poder jugar en la MLS y creo que más de una vez lo dije. Era algo que me llamaba la atención y que tenía ganas. Y venir al Inter de Miami fue una oportunidad y por cómo se dio todo mis últimos años en París, si bien fue una decisión la cual la tuve que tomar sobre la marcha porque me tuve que ir de Barcelona, fueron 2 años donde no lo disfruté, donde no estuve feliz en el día a día, con el entrenamiento, con los partidos. La verdad que me costó muchísimo adaptarme a todo eso. Y bueno, me llamó la intención venir al Inter porque era un club donde estaba en crecimiento, donde era muy, muy nuevo, donde lleva muy pocos años de vida. Y me gustó la idea de venir y poder ayudar a que el club sea más grande y también sabía que era una ciudad donde mi familia y yo íbamos a estar bien, porque si bien la conocía poquito porque había venido pocas veces, sabía lo que era, porque tenía amigos y familiares que visitaban y visitan mucho la ciudad y bueno, pensé que era el momento y no me arrepiento, todo lo contrario.
How have you described the style of play in MLS to your friends who also play?
Bueno, creo que es un juego donde es muy dinámico, muy físico, donde hay mucha gente jóvenes que físicamente son fuertes, que todos los equipos quieren hacer gol y juegan al ataque y bueno, que se hace mucho partido de ida y vuelta, un poco relacionado con el país que estamos y con los deportes que están acostumbrados a ver, ¿no? Donde suele haber mucho show, muchos puntos, muchas jugadas de ataque. Una liga donde creció mucho y sigue creciendo y ojalá no pare, ¿no? Y que los clubes vean lo que pasó con el Inter de Miami y puedan seguir queriendo crecer como club y queriendo ayudar a que la liga sea aún más grande, más importante, y creo que la oportunidad de que la MLS dé un cambio hacia el mundo y siga creciendo con la liga.
You talked about joining a young team and being a part of something to build something. Now that you've played a season and a bit, what is the goal, do you think, medium and long-term goal for a club like Inter Miami of the MLS now that you're a part of it?
Bueno, yo creo que el equipo que tenemos hoy por hoy está construido para intentar de conseguir campeonato y en esa línea estamos, ¿no? Creo que hubo una buena adaptación de los chicos que llegaron, con los chicos jóvenes que tenía el club, el equipo, y creo que el objetivo tiene que seguir siendo eso, ¿no? Intentar de conseguir títulos, seguir ayudando a que el club siga creciendo y a que chicos de abajo del club tengan la oportunidad de seguir apareciendo, de seguir jugando en el Inter, de poder jugar en la MLSe y poder darle la oportunidad a gente que también tiene su sueño y pelea para eso, pero creo que ese es el camino, ¿no? Ir para arriba después de donde arrancamos y de donde estamos hoy y seguir creciendo mucho más.
How has being included to host and also participate and compete in the FIFA Club World Cup, how important is that to the long-term building of MLS as an international league?
Bueno, creo que es algo importantísimo, sobre todo para el club poder participar en el primer mundial de clubes que se va a hacer acá en el país y poder estar y que la MLS tenga 2 equipos. Creo que es algo grandioso y como dije antes, creo que todo lo que está pasando es una oportunidad para que la MLS siga creciendo como fútbol, como liga y que otros jugadores tengan la oportunidad de venir y seguir creciendo. Creo que el fútbol es diferente a todos los deportes que están tan acostumbrados a ver en Estados Unidos, y creo que se debería manejar de diferente manera porque es otro deporte y creo que es la oportunidad para cambiar el chip, para hacer el cambio y que la MLS siga en su crecimiento.
How do you feel today about the future as a player?
Bueno, la verdad que me siento muy bien hoy por hoy. Estoy disfrutando de donde estoy, de lo que hago, del día a día, del entrenamiento, de los partidos, de mis amigos, de mi familia. Disfruto cuando voy a Argentina. Disfruto mucho más quizás que cuando era joven y no me daba cuenta de muchas cosas. Disfruto más los pequeños detalles que por ahí no le daba importancia antes, y la verdad que me siento feliz y viviendo el el día a día, nunca fui de pensar en el futuro, sino vivir el día a día, y yo creo que cuando pasan las cosas es porque tiene que ser así, porque tiene que pasar de esa manera, y nada, no me adelanto a nada, simplemente disfrutar y vivir lo que me pasa hoy.
A tasty dish to kick off our postseason for MLS. Sebi, who is the favorite to win MLS Cup? Inter Miami, San Diego, Vancouver Whitecaps, Philly Union, or LAFC?
Yeah, I mean, people can see the odds there on the screen. They probably think I'm chasing the value here, but I'm not. I think it's LAFC. Third right now in the West. And this basically, for me, is down to two dudes. Denny Bawanga and Heung-min Son. They have been incredible together. So good. I don't know, it's only been like 10 games for Son, but 43 goal involvements combined between those two. They're also coming in pretty hot. Of their last 8 games, they've only lost once, and they were putting up some big, crooked numbers in some of those games. 4 goals, 3 goals, just racking up goals left, right, and center. I also think maybe a little bit of an emotional play here. Steve Cherundolo getting ready to ride off into the sunset, maybe playing for their manager. Also a guy who, knows how to win MLS Cup. He
Last
did it
Dance vibes.
3 years ago, exactly. I really think LAFC for me is not just the best value, but they're the team to pick here. I throw a word to Seattle. I think Seattle's a very, very good team that's always, worthy of consideration this late. It'll probably come down to Seattle, LAFC for me in the West. Ooh. And then, of course, you got to mention Inter Miami, out of the East. I just think this, they lack the coaching, and they are so vulnerable defensively. Again, Nashville, who's not some great team, could have had 3 or 4 goals in the opening half hour of that game. And that's pretty much every Inter Miami game you watch. And I don't think you can win it all with so little defense, no matter what Messi does. At some point, you're going to have a 1-0 or 2-0 game. And I just think they're going to have to rely on their back line more than they're ready to.
Again, the Vancouver disrespect remains. LAFC would have to go through Vancouver, to make it to MLS Cup. Listen, you could say what you want about how hot Son is and how hot Bawanga are. This is still an LAFC team that, for large stretches of the season, underwhelmed. And it's still an LAFC team that, in past editions...
Have they underwhelmed since Son's been there? Because that's the team now. I hear you. The first half, I was like, I'll be honest here. At the beginning of the season,
they didn't look good against Colorado. They didn't look good against Colorado.
Placed a futures bet on LAFC. 3 months into the season, El Primo felt really bad about that bet, but the new LAFC is what I'm going on.
Trust me, if it's the new FC, this because LAFC in general, with Steve Cherundolo, has just always been so Jekyll and Hyde. And if it's a scenario where you're placing all your chips on one player, because that's what you're going off of, how Sung has changed LAFC.
Yes, in the combo with Bawanga.
I'm going to place all my chips on Messi. I'm going to place all my chips on historic Messi, on Messi who's changed the game once, twice, 3 times over. Every single time we see him, he's just a difference maker in a playoff setting where they have the benefit of 3 games against Nashville and then going on.
And 3 games against Atlanta last year.
Yeah, well, yeah. And that's the thing. I don't think that's going to happen again. And they're going to come off and face a Cincinnati team or a Columbus team who are going to come off beating the hell out of each other. I think they'll be physically fresher. I'm going to take Miami here. I think the value is good at plus 500, and I just think it makes sense. The best footballer in the league plays for Inter Miami. I've got no problem with that.
It's just a little bit of a role reversal. You've always been the guy to kind of go against Inter Miami, go against Messi.
And what did you always say?
And don't do it. You don't bet against Messi.
Out of my mouth, Sebi. That was exactly.
I know.
You've always been kind of an Inter Miami,
and you don't bet against them.
LAFC lover, but
he's learned his lesson.
But it's the moment, right, that LAFC has, and we know that when it comes to postseason, it's really of the moment
but
right now. It seems to be more with LAFC collectively
here's the thing.
versus Inter Miami.
We've not seen them have the adversity yet. It's been smooth sailing for LAFC.
So, waiting for the other shoe to drop. Is that how you live your life?
Once you get punched in the mouth, that's when you find out who you are. They've not gotten punched in the mouth with Son. I want to see who they are. I know who Miami is. I like what I see out of them going forward. And I don't think they're as bad defensively as Sev makes it out. I think this team...
Maybe honestly, I'm being prisoner of the moment just off that Nashville game. I'm not exaggerating.
They could have scored 8 on Nashville.
Not in the first half. It should have been 4-0 when Messi
game.
scores.
It should always be something
Mukhtar's
with Inter
put it
Miami.
20 yards over the bar from 5 feet away.
It should always be something with Inter Miami, yet it's not. You should never have a 30-year-old.
Somebody's going to take advantage of those mistakes. At some point in the playoffs, you're not going to run up against Nashville. You're going to run up against some real quality, and somebody's going to take advantage of the mistakes they make.
Say the same thing about LAFC.
Yeah, but LAFC has 2 studs.
And those 2 studs don't measure Lionel Messi.
I'd take 2 over 1 any day.
I can't wait until MLS Cup is wrapped and we can come back to this segment too.
Plus 500, book it.
Extending his contract with MLS team Inter Miami through 2028. I sat down with Messi, and here's what he had to say when I asked him about his future with Inter Miami. Was it a tough decision to make to say yes?
No, la verdad que no. Siempre dije que me baso en cómo estoy en el día a día y en cómo me siento físicamente y mentalmente para seguir jugando y seguir siendo parte de este club. Y la verdad que me sentí muy bien durante el año. Me siento feliz viviendo en Miami, igual que mi familia.
Speaking of Lionel Messi, that's exactly what our guy Cristiano Ronaldo has been doing of late. Let's check out this quote. This is in response to Wayne Rooney's comments, where he said that, yeah, it was Messi and not his former teammate Cristiano Ronaldo that is the greatest of all time. Messi, better than me? I don't agree with that opinion. I don't want to be humble, says Cristiano Ronaldo. Herc, what do you make of these comments from CR7 as related to the ever-present debate between Messi and Ronaldo?
Zero issue with them.
Yeah.
Zero issue with them.
And probably zero surprise with them too, right?
Absolutely not surprised one bit. And I think the fact that it was Wayne Rooney who said this was what set him off a little bit even more, because this is supposed to be a player that's played with you, who's your teammate, and here he is saying that somebody who's never played with, who's only seen on TV, is better than him. I've got zero issue with this. I think when we talk about Lionel Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo, this debate, which I love, is gustos. It's really a preference. Now, I'll explain. Somebody said, well, how can it be a preference? Look what Messi has done. 8 Ballon d'Or, World Cup champion, Copa America champion. If Cristiano Ronaldo and Portugal win this next World Cup, the debate is on again. You have a player who's won 5 Ballon d'Ors, who's going to win the World Cup, a European Championship, who's going to be the all-time leading goal scorer in international football and world football, who's most likely going to get to 1,000 goals, the greatest goal scorer the sport has ever seen. Of course it's going to be back on. And rightfully so. And I go back to, there's no right or wrong answer here. I love the way Messi plays. Absolutely love it. That would be my pick. But I have no problem if somebody else says, well, I think Cristiano's better. And once all of us are gone and only the history books are there, only the numbers are there, it's a very compelling case for Cristiano Ronaldo. Yeah. It really is.
I think that's kind of the achievement, right? And I think, you know, it's not a surprise that he says this, and I don't want people to hear that and think, oh, well, Sebi's like a Ronaldo hater. He's talking about his arrogance in a negative way.
Absolutely not.
I'm talking about it in a positive way. I think, you know, that's what makes him different. It's what makes him great. If you interviewed, I don't know, 99.99% of footballers and you told them that, hey, man, Wayne Rooney was said Lionel Messi's better than you, they would all say, yeah, no. And Ronaldo not only says that, you know, he believes he's at least at Messi's level, if not better, you know that he believes it in his own head. And to your point, there's at least a statistical discussion to be had. And against the extraterrestrial numbers that Messi has put up, that's the achievement. That's really what is incredible about Cristiano Ronaldo. So I think anybody that's surprised by this or takes umbrage with it hasn't been paying attention to this back and forth over the years. And the ego, the willingness to say this is what makes Cristiano Ronaldo great. The other interesting thing about these two guys, and this was actually something producer Beto put in my ears, since they've gone to their respective kind of final acts, we'll call it that, Saudi Arabia and Major League Soccer, the trophies haven't exactly followed. I think Ronaldo has one kind of minor cup with Al Nassr. And of course, Messi has the 2023 Leagues Cup, which I think we put into the minor category.
Insane.
Right? You would have thought wherever they gone, these guys are surely going to not just win hardware, but keep winning it at the clip that they did elsewhere. And for some reason, in this era for them, it hasn't quite worked out.
It really is mind-boggling because you see what they've achieved in different types of levels, where it's much more difficult than where they are now, and you would assume that they would just follow naturally. That whatever team Messi was on would continue to win, and whatever team Cristiano was on would continue to win. But football isn't like that. It's not an individual sport. It's going to be very difficult. But I do find it hard to believe that both have lived the same fate. If I just may very briefly on Cristiano Ronaldo and Messi, we're very fortunate that we've seen these two in the same era. Because if we saw Cristiano Ronaldo in a different era with no Messi to take away a Ballon d'Or, to take away Champions League, to take away whatever, and vice versa, we would be comparing eras and throwing out statistics in the way we talked about Maradona and Messi, the way we talked about Pelé and Cristiano, that type of GOAT. But we got them in the same era, and I think they pushed each other.
준비한 내용은 여기까지이고요. 오늘도 함께 해주신 모든 분께 감사드립니다. 또 다른 해외 영상으로 다시 인사드릴게요. 알랭스였습니다. 기쁜 나날 되세요.